Hello, friends. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Improv and Magic. As always, I'm your host, LD Madeira, and I hope today finds you happy and well. I'm certainly happy today. It's a beautiful day outside. I had a terrific breakfast. My Amazon packages are arriving. And I have a great guest on the show today. Today's guest is one of today's most popular magicians. He's unique, intelligent, and very talented. He is Ben Seidman. Ben has been all over the place. He's made multiple television appearances that include Brainchild on Netflix, Vanity Fair, Wired, Vanderpump Rules on Bravo, Criss Angel Mindfreak, and Penn and Teller Fool Us. Ben has headlined at the Atlantis Resort and Casino in the Bahamas, the Royalton Riviera in Cancun, and has performed a record-breaking 120 shows at the Venetian in Macau, China. And he was the only person in history to be named the resident magician at the Mandalay Bay Resort in Las Vegas. Ben Seidman's show is a unique and entertaining experience combining psychological magic, stand-up comedy, pickpocketing, and sleight of hand. His signature style is playful and captivating that audiences everywhere will remember for years to come. Talking to Ben was an absolute blast. He was so kind and very down to earth. Today he shares his journey and the lessons he's learned along the way, including the importance of being unique and continuing to learn and create. Get ready, my friends. Here's my guest, Ben Seidman. I am very excited to have here on Improv and Magic. He's the always amazing, super talented Mr. Ben Seidman. Hi, Ben. How are you doing today?
Hey, LD. I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am fantastic. You know, I said this when we got online, but I'm looking at your room, and of course, I'm remembering your second appearance on Penn and Teller Fool Us, and so I got a bit giddy when I saw where you're seated.
Oh, sure. Well, I know that everyone's watching this live, so since everyone can see what you're talking about, I'm sure it makes perfect sense to them.
No one's going to see this. This is audio only.
Oh, I know. I was kidding.
Okay.
I'm going to take my clothes off one piece at a time during the interview, and you'll have to deal with it, and no one else will even be the wiser.
Got it. Wow, look at that Speedo. That's incredible, Ben.
See? Very fast. What can I say? And also, I'm doing great. You're doing great. Viewers, how are you? Pause. Great. Okay, awesome. Please don't edit out the pause. That was intentional. All right, please continue. Great to be here.
Well, I think that's about it. Thank you very much, Ben. Had a great time.
I feel good about it, man.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited to learn so much about you, and I want to get right to the very beginning. Where did you grow up, and what was growing up like for you?
Hold on. Let me open my Wikipedia so I can double check this. Someone made me a Wikipedia. It's real. No, I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's where I'm from. It's a city of about a 1.5 million people-ish. And I grew up in the city, not too far from UWM University. And I lived there for most of my childhood up until I guess I went off to college.
And how would you describe your early childhood?
I would say that I don't remember almost any of it. And that's like somewhat of an exaggeration, but not really. My memory for past events is a little dreamlike. I have fleeting memories of certain things. I would say I had a pretty good childhood. Look, when you put it on, when you zoom out and put it on the projector, I guess, and look at my life compared to so many other people in this world, I was very, very lucky. I had my own struggles growing up. I still do. We all do. But I was very fortunate to be raised by two loving parents who learned to love magic.
Well, I happen to know that early on you had a big interest in performing, not just magic, but also in performing arts in general. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I did theater growing up and found theater when I was a kid and got really into it. I loved acting and I loved technical theater, the behind the scenes, and that certainly helped shape my understanding of what performance could and should be. I ended up getting a degree in theater, and I did a lot of plays growing up. There was a little professional theater company called First Stage Milwaukee, which did children's productions, and so I did all of these. I mean, I was Sam I Am in Green Eggs and Ham, the operetta, when I was something about 13, and yeah, I loved it. I loved the world of acting.
I love the idea of a Sam I Am operetta.
Yeah, someone wrote that. Someone sat down and was like, "Okay, I'm gonna figure this out. We're gonna compose this. It's all music." At that point, I was singing soprano. So let me amend that. Maybe it wasn't 13. Maybe it was 12. That's how old I was, because I think maybe around 13 that would have gotten dicey. But sometime around then, yeah, I was a song and dance man, but much more song than dance.
Would you say that that was probably the first play you ever did that made you realize that that's what you wanted to do?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes, actually, entirely, but that has almost nothing to do with the play itself. It happens to do with a situation that I found myself in and am eternally grateful for. During rehearsals one day, early on in the production, I saw a man wearing all black on like across the room, just sitting in the corner. He was one of the crew. I didn't know who he was, but I knew he was part of the theater, and he was springing a deck of cards from one hand to another occasionally. And so I immediately was like, I'm talking to that guy. I don't know who that is, but I need to talk to that guy. And his name was and is Tim Catlett. He was a magician at the time. He had been performing. He had moved into technical theater and was making his living doing theater from a technical perspective, scenic and lighting design and things like that. And I found that he had this background in magic, and I got really excited about it. And so, funny enough, it wasn't being in that play that made me go, "Oh, I want to be a performer." I already wanted to be a performer. It was meeting him and learning some magic tricks from him early on that got me really hooked on magic, I should say. And then that kind of just kept bubbling up. I got very excited about learning magic, and I continued acting and continued doing theater. But that's really when the magic bug bit me, I would say.
Was there anything in particular in your childhood that made you become interested in performing arts in general?
Attention. No, I'm not actually sure. I'm sure that had something to do with it. To be honest, I think that plays into to the backgrounds of a lot of performers. It's really hard to figure out exactly why I decided to do this, and I keep asking every therapist I meet, and they're like, "Dude, I don't know."
Well, I also love meeting a theater person that also appreciates the technical side of theater. I remember in college, that was my work study job all through college, working as a theater tech. What is it about the theater tech part of it that you appreciate?
Oh, I just loved the fact that there were so many different parts that would make a cohesive whole of a production. I feel like it's very easy to see a film or a play or whatever live performance that has technical elements and just focus on the action that's happening on stage. You leave a movie and you usually talk about the script and you talk about the acting and maybe the directing, and maybe some people talk about the costuming and the scenic design and all of the other things that go into it. But I find that most people don't. And all of those elements, if removed, you would just not have a movie. You would not have a play. It would not be what it is. And so I was really interested in the idea of what are all of these different elements that I think are behind the surface that we might not even notice or realize are present. What are all of these things that make up a cohesive play, production, movie, etc. And so I think that's one thing that I really liked about it. That, and I love the craft aspect of it. Like, I'm not very good at woodworking, but I learned to do some basic woodworking and some scenic carpentry, and like during the pandemic, I built a TV stand and bookcases and a bunch of different things. That was my pandemic hobby besides performing virtually. And yeah, I love the craft elements of that.
I've always had a general fascination of how things are put together. And I think that's one of the reasons why I appreciated technical theater a lot. Just learning how all of these elements are used to create this show. Do you have also an interest as well as how things are put together?
Yeah, to some extent. I think at a certain point things go completely above my head. Like electronics, I can't even wrap my head around. Like, how does a dishwasher work? I don't know. I mean, there's water involved, and I guess something is heating up the water and moving it around. Um, to a larger extent, cell phones, computers, AI. I can't even begin to wrap my head around it. I'm not. I don't have the type of brain that really gravitates towards that. I'm much more of a meat and potatoes sort of interested in how things are made sort of person. In other words, if it's something I can kind of wrap my head around with no engineering experience besides what I've taught myself over the years and what I've needed for magic, if it as long as it's something that I can kind of grok to some degree, I'm interested in learning more. If it's completely over my head, I find myself just glazing over and thinking, oh, I should leave that to the professionals. But if there is some element that I can find myself saying, I don't know how I don't know how greeting cards are made, but someone makes them. There's an artist who draws something, and the paper must be printed. So that's some sort of paper stock, and there's probably a coating on there, and they have to get folded. Like that to me is interesting, even though to most people that's like, why would you even think of that? Like I'm not a religious watcher of this show, but occasionally if I'm on tour and I'm in a hotel room, if that show How Things Are Made is on TV, oh my God, I could watch that for an eternity.
Well, who were some of your other early influences?
Great question. Certainly George Carlin. My best friend growing up gave me the book Brain Droppings when I was very young, and I had never read a book by a comedian before. I hadn't even really seen stand up at that point. I didn't really know stand up comedy existed, and just reading his writing, I found myself crying, laughing, and so I obviously pursued his stand up when I got a little bit older and found those tapes. Luckily, I jumped into Carlin at like the perfect time. Like I picked the perfect album. It was right in the sweet spot where he was no longer hippy dippy weatherman, but this was before he got super super dark. It was like all the really political stuff, sanctity of life. He covers a lot of intense topics, obviously abortion, etc. But it's really really funny. The jokes are so solid, and so when I heard that album, I was like, game over. This guy's incredible. And obviously over the years I found other comics, but certainly Carlin early on. In Magic, definitely a man named David Williamson, who just happened to do a spot in a TV special that I saw. And early on, there were a handful of other people. Mac King also comes to mind, just an incredible magician, great comedian. And both of these guys are friends now, which is amazing. And, there was Penn and Teller, obviously. I have to poke myself sometimes because I think if the 15-year-old Ben knew that, like, I knew and had worked with Penn and Teller, his head would have exploded. But I had certainly seen them on TV. I was really drawn towards magic that was comedic, but not silly. A lot of comedy magic can be silly, and I really loved people who are doing strong original magic that was out of the box, but that was also funny but powerful.
I believe you reached a point where you basically had to make a decision of what route you wanted to go. You could have chosen to go the acting route or the stand up route or the magic route. Why magic? Why for you was that the thing that you decided this is what I'm going to devote my life to?
Well, to be fair, I got interested in stand up when I was younger, but that wasn't a consideration really. It was three things though. It came down to acting, magic, and music. I played in a band and really loved doing that. That was just one of my favorite things in the world. Actually, the guitarist and songwriter, who's one of my closest friends, Willie Dintenfoss. He's the one who gave me the Brain Droppings book early on. He's got a new band called Dogs in Ecstasy that's amazing. He's playing music and doing awesome stuff. But yeah, it came down to acting, music, or magic. And then I found comedy later and then started integrating that in. But that was after I made the decision to really put all of my effort and focus into magic. And I guess to answer your question, um, I think part of it had to do with the fact that I'm a good actor. I'm a solid actor. If I work on something and have good direction, I feel like I'm pretty darn good. But I saw a lot of people who I was working with who were really talented. When it came to magic, I just started, as I was learning, looking around and seeing, first of all, not that many other magicians where I lived, but also feeling like, hey, there's something here. There's something that I have that I should pursue. And it just kind of drew me in closer, maybe because I had more natural ability in that direction. And maybe because it was sort of a marriage of the things that I loved, which was performing and also creating things, the engineering side, the invention side of magic, which I've always been very excited about. Like I take so much pleasure in developing an idea and seeing it to the end. It's a different type of excitement for me, but I get a similar buzz as I do when I'm on stage, as when I'm developing things. So I think magic just kind of married those two interests really nicely, and yeah, I just, something about it said this is what you should follow.
Well, I definitely think comedy magic is definitely an art in and of itself. And as you mentioned, there's some that do it really well, and there's some that just kind of make it kind of silly and weird. I love how your comedy, as you mentioned, comes off very natural, and it looks like you're not even trying. That's how good it looks. How do you manage to keep that natural feeling when you integrate the comedy into your magic?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you. That's very kind of you. I suppose it's funny because I loved acting and I loved creating characters and developing characters. And early on, everyone says, "Yeah, if you're a magician, you have to figure out what your character is. Decide what your character is." And then it took me years, but I eventually figured out, oh, it's me, dummy. Like it's not anyone else. It is just how do I distill the purest version of myself and make that who I am on stage. And I think also who I am on stage has also bled into my real life a little bit in some way, like in some very positive ways. I think that performing has given me more confidence. I'm an extrovert, but I was kind of a shy kid. There were years when I was very, very shy, and the performing certainly helped that. Um, I'm rambling, LD. You're gonna have to remind me what question you asked
Oh,
me.
please. I love it when people ramble. Trust me. It makes what I do a lot easier. But the question was just how do you manage to keep your comedy feeling natural and not forced comedy?
By the way, while I was on that rant, LD just put his feet up on the desk and he's eating a sandwich. So no, how does it not feel forced? I think I wanted the comedy to come from a place sort of outside of the magic, if that makes sense. Like I didn't want the comedy to be about the trick. I wanted that to be two different things that integrate with each other in a seamless fashion, but I didn't want the funny of the trick to be what was funny. And that's why I think I went more in a personal narrative direction when it comes to some of the bits I have, whether it's a 5 minute piece that's a comedic monologue from my life, or it's a shorter piece, or even like a minute long joke. I think that all of those are just stories from my life and experiences that turned out to be funny. And then, of course, I worked and crafted them into jokes and found out where the funny was and tried to develop them. But maybe it doesn't feel forced because I'm writing my own jokes, and with so much comedy magic, it's like, hey, here's a funny prop, and here's a funny trick, and here's a funny routine with it. If you go on websites that sell magic things for magicians or hobbyists, or if you go to one of the few remaining magic stores, they used to exist and there's still a few left. Please support your local magic shop. If you go to one of those places, you'd find all of these things that would be under the genre of comedy magic. And all of the comedy comes from the trick itself. And that's because you can't sell a product that's based on a true story that didn't happen to you and have someone else do it.
Right.
First of all, like I said, thank you for saying nice things. But I guess to answer your question, I think it's just because I try to make sure the comedy is coming from a place of me more than anything else.
One thing that I love asking both magicians and improvisers is I'm very fascinated with the idea that when you're on stage and you're playing a character, that character is you and not you at the same time. And for many different roles and many different types of performances, some people will say, well, this is 100% me. And some people say, well, it's 50-50. And some people will say, well, that's not me at all. For you, how much of Ben do we see in your performance?
I think you see I think you see a great amount of me. There's a lot of my soul in my show. The current hour that I'm doing has personal narratives that are either true or very, very close to true. Maybe with a little punch up here and there, but for the most part, things that really happened to me. Um, I don't think it's possible to see 100% of anyone in a performance, but at the same time, I feel like my performances are 100% me, but I can't talk about everything that's on my mind. I can't bare my soul entirely because I'm also hired as an entertainer, and my job is to be amazing and funny. So anything that's outside of amazing and funny, it's not really in the show for the most part, except on specific occasions where there's some other goal that needs to be accomplished. One of my closest friends is a great magician and mentalist named David Gerard. Uh, Also, one of the it's funny. David has two best friends. I'm one of them, and Colin Cloud is the other, who I know you did a great podcast with. David saw me perform and we became friends because he saw a performance where I talked about a coin trick that one of my mentors had taught me, and he had passed away recently. And I cried on stage while I was performing this trick.
Hmm.
Not like sloppy, but tearing up and obviously emotional. And, that part wasn't funny at all. It was totally sincere. And it really stuck with him enough that he reached out to me and we started corresponding and later became friends. But that's in a theatrical setting. Most of my shows are big corporate events, private parties. I do some theaters, but the narrative arc, even in the theater show, is not usually too emotional. Just because I'm either not there yet or I haven't quite found the right way to make that work in a context where I feel like it maximizes my potential for what I can give an audience. So maybe someday that'll happen, and maybe there'll be a very truth telly story where you can say, "Oh no, I saw 100% of Ben." I mean, I am wearing a Speedo right now. We've clarified this. For those of you who just tuned in, there was a Speedo reference earlier on. Just want to clarify that. Who
And it has my face on it, which is even weirder.
Yeah, you get them custom printed. There's a place down the street. Yeah, who does that? Me, apparently, in this version of reality that we're toying with. So to answer your question, how much of me is on stage? I think it's a very, very true version of me, but there are darker sides that I don't share, and maybe someday I will change that. But right now, I'm very happy with who I am on stage, which really is just me with the volume turned way up. And when I say volume, I should clarify. I don't mean my speaking voice. I mean I accentuate certain things. I'm a little bigger than life, but it's otherwise just a version of who I am.
I really loved your first performance on Penn and Teller Fool Us. And what I loved about it was you didn't do what a lot of magicians on that show do, where they just jump right into the trick. You actually had the guts to take your time and you set up this wonderful story about being held up by this guy on the street. How important is storytelling when you do your performances?
Well, for me, it is a important aspect of what I do in most contexts. That being said, there are shows that I do where I look at the audience and I look at the situation and I say, you know what? I don't think I'm going to do 4 minutes of stand-up comedy about religion before I get into this trick. I think I'm just going to hit him with the trick and get my money and leave. Not because I mean, look, I feel partially like I'm not being the truest version of myself that I can be on stage, but also in some environments that's not what is required. Like I said, I'm an entertainer, and I have a job to do, and so if the comedy or stories are not in service of that job, then I adapt, and that's something that has really helped me out as far as my ability to perform in lots of different venues for lots of different demographics, performing shows for in some cases for people who are, very religious of any and all religions, or, audiences where there happen to be some kids in the audience. I mean, I did a corporate event not too long ago where the CEO's 9-year-old came to the show. And it wasn't going to be a dirty show anyway. It was a corporate, but I didn't really have to change much. But I did stop and think, like, okay, all right, what am I going to adapt so that this experience is as great for her as it is for everyone else in the audience, I hope.
Well, obviously it goes without saying, you always have to kind of change the act in some way based on where you're performing and who you're performing for. And I remember when I was talking with Colin earlier, he mentioned how there's a very big difference between performing in the UK and performing on Broadway and performing in Las Vegas. For you, what are some of the major differences that you see in the different types of shows and corporate events that you perform in?
Are you trying to hold my credits up against Colin's? Because I'll fight you. Colin's a great friend. He's doing amazing things. His new show just opened. I cannot wait to see it. I adapt. I adapt whenever necessary. I do love, believe me, I love getting to perform in a theater where it's a ticketed audience and people pay to see me. That's so fun because then I get to do exactly what I want on my terms entirely. There are certainly some comedians and other performers who will just do that anyway. But most of those people have gotten to a point in their career where they are so big and famous and make so much money that if their audience gets upset or they walk part of the room, it doesn't matter. For me, I'm still a working professional. I'm still a magician doing shows. And when people see me, I hope that they tell their friend who's working in another company who then hires me. Like, I I do care about the audience experience very, very much. And so I adapt where I find necessary. Now, that being said, I've done theater performances where I have made some adaptations because of the demographic of the audience. I did a really small performance arts center in the deep South. And although that was a ticketed show and people came to see me, I know that not everyone there knew who Ben Seidman was. They just saw, hey, this looks cool. Let's go to this. And so, I was a little more gentle on certain topics that I might otherwise have covered more thoroughly at a show if I was in Chicago or Boston. Yeah, I think it's part of the job as the entertainer to really get a sense of the room and the people, and and then make those decisions as you're walking on stage, before you walk out on stage, and then also many times in the moment when you're on stage, if you are editing in the moment or if something happens that you're naturally responding to. All right, if you're playing the improv podcast comedy game, you can take a shot now. I just veered off of Magic and joined your Yes and team.
Well, congratulations are in order because you're the first resident magician at the Mandalay Bay.
Thank you.
What does that feel like to be the very first resident magician of that wonderful hotel?
Oh man, I mean that gig was wonderful. It was a long time ago though. It's a very impressive sounding credit and people still get excited to hear it. Unfortunately, whenever it's mentioned in my introduction, people come up to me afterwards and say, "When can I see you in Vegas?" And I say, "I don't know. Go see Colin. I have no idea." Uh, but uh, but yeah, I used to do that, and it was an amazing experience. I was doing mostly close-up magic at a few different venues there for VIP events and for other busy times in these ultra lounges. And that was primarily close-up magic. I did some stage shows when I was out there during that time period also, but that was mostly close-up, and it was really exciting and really fun because I want to say 2023 maybe was when that happened. I went directly from consulting on Mindfreak on A&E to doing that, and yeah, shortly thereafter, as I'm trying to recall my life here, and it was really fun and really excited, and it sounds fancy.
Well, I do want to touch upon one thing that you kind of alluded to. One thing that I also love about your performances is we can tell that you're definitely making a connection with the audience. And as we watch you, we can't help but feel like we are connected with Ben right now in this moment. How important is that connection with the audience? And what do you do to try to make that connection mean something with the audience that you're performing for?
Well, we only have this moment, this very moment. It's the only thing that we have. It's the only thing that we are guaranteed. And so I take it very seriously that people are giving me their time for an hour or however long it is. So I want to be as present as possible, and I want them to be as present as possible. That's one amazing thing about live performance is the audience is usually very present, and you usually don't have to work too hard for them to be present. You're in the room with them. If it's a small intimate room, they can almost feel you. They can reach up and touch you. And even if it's a larger room, that dynamic still exists. I don't know what I do to try to create that feeling, or rather to try to amplify it. I think that I think that part of it just comes from me, and if I'm hyper present, then they will be, or at least they're more likely to be. I don't know. I rarely have shows where I got off stage and I think, "Oh man, that audience wasn't very present." Although I do have shows where I walk off stage and think, "Oh, I could have been more present. Maybe I was taken out of it." And I think the best performers are in the moment as much as possible, and I strive to do that whenever I can.
Do you think that's hard to do? Because I feel like there are a lot of performers, whether you're a magician or an improviser or just an actor in general, who might have a bit of trouble with that. Do you think it's hard to make that connection with audiences sometimes?
Certainly for everyone, it's going to be different. I think it really helps that I did so much theater growing up. And then on top of that, it helps that I've done a bazillion shows. I've done magic in front of people. Like, I've gotten paid to do magic in front of people a ton of times, and that really helps. And I'm also, man, like, I'm going to pause and be grateful for that because it's this thing that I always wanted to do, and somehow I managed to make it work in a career that is, very difficult. And I recognize that that I'm lucky in so many ways to get to do that.
Well, some of your audience members that you perform for also include major celebrities. You perform for the likes of Christina Aguilera, Aubrey Plaza, you perform for the late Robin Williams. What is that experience like to perform for these really well known celebrities?
Well, it was just the four of us, and it was a great time. No, that's not true. I mean, it was a great time. Those were three separate occasions. How do you know all that? I'm very impressed with you, LD. Not all of that's public info.
I take my time to do a lot of research, let
I
me tell
can
you.
tell. What is my blood type?
I'll send it to you telepathically.
Yep, it is organic almond milk. You are correct.
I knew it.
Doing those shows are fun and stressful. I would say that all three of those were very different situations. One of those people hired me to perform at their house for them and like 20 friends. Another one came to see a show that I was on the bill for and then came backstage and hung out. Another was kind of a weird, strange chance encounter. That's a long story. celebrities are also human beings, and most of the nice ones are pretty chill and pretty nice. From my experience, I've found that although I might get a little nervous at first if it's someone whose work I really really respect, usually it's just like talking to anyone else. Your heart just beats a little faster if it's someone who, let's say is a famous actor whose work you've been following for your entire life. But yeah, I think it comes in the reps, right? If I had the opportunity to perform for Robin Williams when I was 17, I'm sure it would have been a mess. But luckily, that was after I'd been doing many shows. Um, I did a celebrity party that was very, very challenging. It was a challenging situation, and I did a great job. But I walked away and I thought, man, I'm glad I did that in my late 30s and not in my late 20s or even early 30s. Like, I'm glad that I had the experience I had to bring to the table to make that hard situation great. So yeah, I mean, for the performers out there listening, there's nothing that just beats reps, like just doing it over and over and over again. Sometimes you can find ways to speed up your progress, of course, and we're all looking for those hacks. Everyone is. But, doing the reps, there is no sacrifice, or there's no possible shortcut, is what I should say. There's no possible shortcut to a lot of it. It's just doing the thing over and over and over and over again. If you paint houses, if that's how you make your living, yeah, the first house you painted, it was probably fine. If you've been doing this for years, then it's probably pretty amazing.
I'm curious, what's it like to teach magic to Johnny Knoxville?
Excuse me, I wasn't coughing for emphasis there. That was I just swallowed wrong. Give me a second. Today's
Sure.
sponsor is non-fat almond milk. Did I say organic before? Did I step on my own callback? Um, Johnny Knoxville is a wild dude. He's always been very nice and friendly. The times I've worked with him on various things, he's a total goofball, and I feel like I've told all the Johnny Knoxville stories that I have in my life on other podcasts. So I don't want to step on things that I've talked about too much. But I will say that he loves what he does and he loves that lifestyle. And although he's older than he used to be when he first started doing those stunts, and he's sustained quite a bit of damage to his body, he still loves that world. And you can just tell this is not a paycheck for him. This is not a way that he figured out how to get famous or how to make a lot of money. He loves doing crazy shit.
Well, you are definitely someone who is constantly on the go. You do, I think, close to 200 shows a year, maybe more. How do you manage to do that many performances and not experience burnout?
I will say that the 200 number gets tossed around to me sometimes. That has happened multiple years, but that's not the norm. I definitely don't do 200 shows every year now. Thank God. It was amazing, and I'm so glad I did do that at a time, but I've scaled it back a lot. I mean, I'm very busy and I'm still performing quite a bit, but I'm not doing the type of uh, do a show, get back to the hotel at midnight, go to sleep at 2 or 3 a.m., wake up at 4 a.m., drive to the airport, get on a flight. I'm not doing that all the time. It still happens once in a while if there's scheduling conflicts and a client really wants me at a certain time, and it's the only way to have happen. But I don't do the crazy number of shows that I used to when I was doing, especially colleges. The college market, if you're doing a lot in that market back in the day, you could book a ton of dates. And between that and a bunch of other shows where I would do multiple shows in a day in the same venue, it added up quickly. Um, I still love performing, but I also found that if you do anything too much, it can hurt a little bit. and part of that was the lack of sleep. But I don't know what I actually don't know how many shows I do. I really should add it up. It's probably closer to like it might be closer to 100 a year right now. I don't know. I'd literally have to look at my schedule and check.
Is there anything you do to kind of recharge yourself and kind of reset yourself before you start performing again?
You mean like some sort of vacation?
Yeah, something like that.
I was never good at taking vacations, and now that I'm married, I'm getting better. I have trouble doing nothing, but it's something I'm getting better at. It just, the periods of time in my life when I'm able to take a little break, whether it's for a period of time or even during the day, those are very limited. But I'm getting better at stopping and having little miniature vacations, whether that's going to the gym for a bit or meditating for a bit or just hanging out with my dog. I'm getting better at doing things like that. It definitely makes me a better person. There's no doubt about that. But I don't know. This summer's been real crazy. My wife is about to go to grad school, and so we're kind of this year we really blew it out and did a ton of travel this year. And we went to Greece, and then I had a gig in Egypt that I did, and then we went from there to Italy and Spain, which was really crazy. And it was just kind of like the dream trip for my wife to do some of those places. And I think the Ben 5 years ago would have been more stressed about that. And the Ben now is really excited to do these experiences. And now I'm going to go back to 200 shows. No, I'm going to go to 300 shows a year so I can pay for those trips.
Do you notice some of the differences in the way audiences react to magic in different countries? I know one thing that Colin mentioned is that in the UK, the people there don't show their emotions as much as they do in the US, as an example. Have you noticed any sort of differences like that in other countries?
Yeah, I've also noticed that Colin gets much less responses when he's in the UK. No, that was a joke. I'm kidding. You know what? It's funny. Colin's a buddy. Obviously, if you're playing the Colin drinking game, you can take a shot now. He obviously has performed so much in the UK, and he does Edinburgh every year. I don't do as much international performance as some of my friends. I have friends who travel all over the world and are very international. My friend Charlie Caper can do his show in like 7 or 8 different languages, something crazy like that. Most of my shows are in the US or, Canada or other English speaking places. So there are some cultural differences. I think that what Colin said is right. I think folks in the UK, or at least England, are much more reserved in their reactions, especially their reactions to magic. Also, the humor is not exactly the same, similar but different, and certain things work in one place and wouldn't work somewhere else, both because of cultural differences and also just vocabulary, right? Like you make a reference to some candy bar, I don't know, whatever it might be, and like, well, they might not have that brand of candy bar in Lithuania. I don't know. I've never been to Lithuania.
I remember watching you on a video that you did for Wired Magazine, and it was an episode all about pickpocketing. And in this, you actually show these different levels, different stages of pickpocketing. Where does your interest in pickpocketing come from?
Well, I should warn you that has some consequences. I'm currently consulting on a film right now, and I'm teaching a child magic, and this kid watched that video unbeknownst to me and tried to steal my stuff. So
Oh no.
so I mean, look, there are disadvantages to being the pickpocket guy. That's just one aspect of what I love about magic. I'm really fascinated by anything that's amazing. And when I first found out that you could say remove someone's watch without them knowing, I was so fascinated by that as an idea. It's such a magical thing because it's so invasive. And so when I was younger, I I had just kind of heard lore of a handful of people who are doing that type of work, and there are not many. There are only a handful of people, and I came across two different incredible pickpockets when I was in Las Vegas. One of them, Apollo Robbins, and the other one named Bob Arno. And at various points in my life, had forged friendships and you know hung out with these guys and learned a little bit about not so much the technique. Well, with Bob, I didn't really learn technique from Bob, but I learned a lot about what it means to be a pickpocket and the entertainment value of it. And then Apollo, on the other hand, has is in some ways kind of a mentor. He's helped me a lot and taught me quite a bit. And I, technically skilled, he might be the greatest to have ever done it when it comes to the understanding of deception and pickpocketing in that context. Like truly, he's unbelievable. And so yeah, being around these two guys separately, these were two sort of separate friendships, but getting to know that this stuff was possible and seeing them do this amazing thing, which is taking things without people knowing, just really fascinated me. And so I always was searching for different ways and techniques, different types of magical effects where pickpocketing would make sense in that context. And it's a long journey. I'm still learning. I would never say that, people say like, oh, you're an amazing pickpocket. I say, well, I'm still learning. Like genuinely, every situation is different. Whenever you try to steal something, it's different. It's not like a lot of magic tricks or some stand-up where you can write it all out and follow a formula. In this case, you have to be really good in the moment at changing and adapting not just the performance, but the techniques. Like my stage show, I think there's quite a bit of adaptation of the performance on stage, what we talked about, changing things in the moment. But when it comes to pickpocketing, you're really doing that on a technical level, which is very different, very challenging too. The art of pickpocketing theatrically is small and getting smaller. I think I said on that video, people tend not to wear the types of clothing that are conducive to most of those steals nowadays. Different styles of clothing come in and out of fashion. Less people wear watches. There's many reasons why a lot of people don't do this stuff. Oh, and it's really, really hard. It's really hard to do, and you can get caught. And so it's a small world, but I was just fascinated by it and wanted to learn more. And I still do. I still practice. I still try as best as I can to refine those techniques so that they are better and better.
After doing magic for so many years, at this point in your career, do you feel like you have all you need for your repertoire, or are you still creating and still searching for new things to learn and do?
Oh, I don't think I will ever feel like I have all that I need in my repertoire. I remember seeing a magician not too long ago performing at a venue in LA called the Magic Castle. It's a private club for magicians and people who have met a magician who, might have gotten them in. I saw a guy doing an act that he clearly wrote in the 1980s, and he clearly hadn't changed it since the 1980s. And that just like it makes me physically uncomfortable. I start sweating when I see that. I just hope that I continue to adapt and develop, not just in material and creating new magic, but also changing what the effect is and how it's performed, because I don't ever want to be one of those guys who you say, oh yeah, I bet he was pretty good in the early thousands. Like I would be so upset if that was the word out on the street about me. So yeah, I'm always gonna keep developing that, and I get so much pleasure from creating magic and from learning magic, just like learning different techniques. It's so fun for me. So yeah, I'll never stop. Why would I stop? I'm not going to stop. Try to stop me.
It's funny in saying that. You reminded me of a story that about me watching a magician. This was only 5 years ago, and this guy, he was a local magician, and he was doing a cut and restored rope routine. And in the cutting of the rope, he would make Lorena Bobbitt jokes.
Oh,
And this was only 5 years ago. And I'll give a pause right now so people have time to Google the name Lorena Bobbitt.
yeah. That's really rough, man. That's really tough. And by the way, I really love creating magic tricks, but also I mean, I love classic magic tricks too. I don't really do any of them in my show, but man, there are a couple people who do linking ring routines that are so incredible, so brilliant. My buddy Jared Kopf does he does linking rings and cups and balls, and it's one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's because of one, how good he is, two, who he is, and three, the fact that when you see Jared work, you really feel like you know who Jared is. So again, it's back to are you putting yourself out there? Is there a part of you that's coming off the performance for people to grab onto?
Well, I've also seen you demonstrate some tricks for the company Vanishing Inc. And these are tricks that you're not only performing, but you're also demonstrating for other magicians to buy. What is your mindset when you're performing a trick that you know that most likely thousands of magicians are going to purchase?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, there's a whole market out there for magicians who want to learn magic and magicians who want to publish magic and sell it and teach it in various forms. I decided long ago, after publishing my first magic idea and then a handful of smaller satellite things, I kind of decided that I was going to step away from publishing. Not because I had a bad experience or anything like that. I had a great experience, but I just wanted to focus on my own performance. And I didn't want to be someone who relied on income from selling magic tricks. And then I spent, I don't know, 10 years, something like that, just developing and performing. And then at a certain point, I just thought, man, I've gotten to the point where I'm doing a lot of shows. I am becoming the person I want to be on stage. I learned so much from so many of the other magicians who wrote books on their ideas or maybe made VHS tapes. That's, showing my age, and DVDs too. I learned it's all downloads now. Like you can buy a video download of a performance and explanation of someone who's published their own trick. But I figured I've gotten to a point in my life where if there's an idea I have that I really, really, really love, but it's not so inherently me that it feels like it could only be performed by me, I don't know. At a certain point, I do want to share that with some people, and in the case of Oracle System, for example, that was the first trick I published after being dormant in the magic community as a magic releaser. Releaser? I don't think that's the right word. That was the first trick that I put out, and I love 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 doing it. And I do some there's some funny bits when I perform it often, but it's more of a serious piece. It's more of a hard-hitting mentalism, mind reading routine. And although I still perform it, it's primarily a close-up routine. And most of my shows are on stage. So I just decided, oh, it's time to share this with people. And same with Permanent Record, which was the other thing I published with Vanishing Ink. Enough people had asked me like, "Hey, could I do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, well, it's mine. I haven't really, you know what? At a certain point, sure, sure, I'll put it out into the world and make a little. It's a side hustle. You make a little cash on the side when people buy your stuff, and also, you can contribute and hopefully help other people become better magicians themselves. And that's what I want for that community, because there is a magic community, and it's got light, it's got darkness, but I do like helping out when I can, and when I'm approached, especially by a young person who's interested in this stuff, I do my best to help them out or point them in the right direction whenever I can.
I do want to take a moment and say that we do right now want to wish everybody at Vanishing Inc. a lot of love right now. We know that they just experienced that big fire, and we're happy that no one was hurt, and we're wishing them all the best. And we're glad to see that everyone's really come together and helping them out. So we love you, all of you guys at Vanishing Inc., FYI.
Yeah, they're really amazing. And I had alluded to going to Egypt earlier. That was a Vanishing Ink retreat. They do these, very, very small sort of adventure travel slash magic gathering things. And Josh and Andy had asked me to come to Egypt and perform and also lecture and teach some of my ideas. And so I really jumped at the chance. And I mean, yeah, it was really, really incredible. Those guys are totally amazing. So yes, support your local magic shop, support Vanishing Ink. Great people.
You mentioned that you got to create illusions for Criss Angel, and of course, you work with Joshua and Andy and a whole lot of other great magicians. Is there a part of you that still gets starstruck when you meet these heroes of magic?
I love that you just use Josh and Andy and then Criss Angel in the same sentence in that context. That is, we're gonna clip that and send it to that. I cannot wait. Uh, you know
Hey, they're
what?
all heroes to me.
Yeah, the last time I was really starstruck was I got to have dinner with Darren Brown. That was the last time I was really starstruck
Oh,
over.
wow.
LD just almost just did a spit take almost. He was drinking when I said that, and yeah, that was incredible. Darren was doing a run of shows in New York, and we have a bunch of mutual friends, and I got invited to dinner, and I sat next to Darren, and I felt a little. I was like, oh my gosh, oh my god, this is Darren Brown, and I don't usually feel that way. I'm normally just like, okay, whatever. But yeah, Darren Brown, I had to pause and think like, oh man, this is really something. I'm meeting Darren freaking Brown. This is nuts. Nice guy, by the way. Really nice guy. He's awesome. Really funny. Really smart. Obviously talented. What if I just came out here and just only had bad things to say about Darren Brown? That would be a hoot. No, he's amazing. And then during dinner, I remember distinctly I said something that made him laugh really hard, and he slapped me on the back, and I was like, all right, cool. If I get hit by a bus tonight, I'm good. I did it.
Yeah, it's funny. I have that exact same experience every time I do this podcast. Like, even with you, there's still a part of my brain that's exploding because I'm like, oh wow, I'm talking to Ben Seidman. I love this guy,
Oh,
and it's funny. And it's funny how like when I sit here and like that last 5 minutes before they show up on the screen, I'm kind of like getting nervous and getting anxious. But then when they show up on the screen and I start talking to them, those nerves kind of go away because, oh, this is a friend that I get to talk to. That's one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast with everyone that I get to talk to. It's very easy for a lot of us to look at these well-known people as sort of like demigods in a way, but I love the opportunity to get to know someone, and that's when you realize this is a good person. This is a good friend. Has that been your same experience as well?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I do think now that we're talking about this, I can think of a couple of occasions where I met a famous person and really put my foot in my mouth or didn't feel like I said the right thing. I certainly have fallen victim to that. I sat behind Conan O'Brien on a flight once, and we got off, and I wasn't going to talk to him on the flight, but then we got off and we were walking through the airport, and one I've worked a bunch with Brian Kiley. I've done stand up on the same show with him. We haven't worked on projects together, but we've been on the same lineup. And Brian was one of Conan's main monologue writers for years. And I thought it would be really funny to say, "Oh my gosh, Conan, I'm a huge fan of Brian Kiley." Because Brian's a great comedian, but he's not Conan O'Brien famous. And I just thought it would be hilarious for there to be a misdirect where he thought I was going to compliment him, and it did not play. Like, it did not play as a bit. He was just like, yeah, Brian Kiley's great, and it was just awkward and bad. And I was like, okay, you're a hero, bye, and like ran away.
I love that.
So yeah, if you meet your heroes, don't open with bits.
Good idea. Really good advice. Well, Ben, I've got one more question for you, my friend, and this has been such a great time. My final question to you is, what's the one piece of advice that has served you well that you'd want everyone else to hear?
What if I just fell asleep right now? No, I'm thinking. The one piece of advice, let's see here. I feel like I would answer this question differently depending on my mood, how, what's happening in my life, so many different factors. I'll give you two. The one that was so important to me was in my development as a performer was very early on. Criss, Copperfield's executive producer and creative consultant, Criss said to me, "Be unique." And he always was pushing people to focus on, what can you do in a show that's different? Like, how do you interface with the world in a way that doesn't seem like everyone else? So that was great performance advice. And then life advice, I would just say pause and realize that the person that you're talking to is in a very different situation. Like, it's very possible that they had a very different upbringing and you don't know what their day was like. So just be kind to everyone. It's like all the cliches, right? You do you meditate for 3 years silently, or you do a bunch of ayahuasca, or you do whatever spiritual journey, and then you come back from the other side and you go, oh, I guess it was just, be nice to everyone else. I guess that's the thing. I guess that's the enlightenment. So yeah, be kind.
Awesome.
Or go fuck yourself.
I think you'd appreciate this. When I asked Colin that question, you know what his answer was?
No, I don't. Hold on, let me call him. No, you tell me.
His answer was, don't be a dick.
Yeah, that sounds right. That is both funnier and also more succinct. Well done, Colin.
Well, Ben, this has been an absolutely wonderful time. I cannot thank you enough for being here. Thank you so much, and I wish you the very best in the rest of your career and the rest of your life, my friend.
Thank you, LD. It was so nice meeting you. What a fun chat. If you've made it this far in the podcast, hello, and thank you for listening.
There's certainly no substitution for kindness. Be kind to everyone. You never know how badly someone may need it. Really great advice. Big thank you to Ben Seidman for sharing his time today. He's an amazing man, and you all should definitely check out his show. So, after you're done rating and reviewing this podcast, visit Ben's website, benseidman.com, to learn more about him, where to catch his shows, and how to book him for your event. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you for joining me here on Improv and Magic. I'm LD Madeira, you are who you are, and you are special. Take care, everybody.